All right. Good morning, everyone. It's good to have you all here today. Good morning to all of you over the internet that are also here with us today. Happy Father's Day for the people who have their parents or fathers in Brazil. It is Father's Day in Brazil today. So if anybody that's over the internet with us, maybe watching us from Brazil, happy Father's Day to all of you. It's hard for us to remember because it doesn't match the one here in Canada. So it's hard for us who has parents in Brazil to remember that, right? But today we're going to have our lecture. We're going to be talking about life in society, our responsibilities and rights. But before that, as always, we're going to have our reading, our initial prayer by our friend Tanya.
Good morning, everyone. I will read the book Happy Life by Divaldo Pereira Franco, The Spirit of Joana de Angelis. You should avoid those ingredients that excite the mind, the body, and the emotions. Soft melodies harmonize in good music, while others, designed for lust and violence, preoccupy and change the rhythm of the nervous system. Elevated readings instruct and educate, while extravagant and sensual reading material corrupts and changes the value system for the worse. Healthy conversation lifts the spirits, while vulgar talk loosens the character. Spare yourself the wave of indignity that has taken over the world and people. Thank you. Oh, okay. So let's close our eyes and let's say thank you that we are here this morning. Thank you, our Master Jesus Christ, for us to have woken up this morning and had this opportunity to be here again. And I wanted to ask our mentors here at TSS to help and support this moment for this lecture and for all of us that we have been here, that we can keep in our minds and in our hearts for our enlightenment and for our growth. Thank you, and so be it.
All right. Thank you, Tanya, for the reading and for the initial prayer. So as I said, the lecture today is going to be about life in society, but mostly be talking about responsibilities and rights. But before I start about responsibility and rights in society, first we need to kind of understand how our societies are formed, and more in a spiritual sense. Because how they are formed, we know. Like we know how our countries are formed, societies and everything. Just you get your books of history, and they fought a lot, but still doing it. Seems that nothing changed much, right? One conquers the other, invades, go here, take a piece, then you divide it again, and that's how we got all the nations that we have, and then different cultures that we have. But spiritually, societies also, they have a history, right? And that's what we're going to be starting to talk today a little bit. So that's where we're going to start with the passage from the book Pensamento em Vida, Thought and Life. Is actually, this book is translated to English and was psychographed by Chico Xavier by the Spirit of Emmanuel. And on chapter 18, it's called Society. Okay? And Emmanuel starts saying, write this. That's how he starts. Human society can be compared to an immense forest of mental creations where each spirit in the process of evolution and refinement, encounters the reflection of itself. So basically, the same way that we're talking in spirituals that nobody's born in the wrong family and we kind of have affinity with that family that we're born, well, same happens with society. It's not a coincidence that we are born inside of the cultures and the nations that we're born, right? Because nations, that's how pretty much today our societies divide, right? They divide being nations, right? And in fact, there's a book called A Caminho da Luz, In the Way of Light, which is actually translated to English. And it talks exactly about that. It talks about the spiritual formation of the nations, right? And it shows how, for example, the Romans, who were very designed to had the mind of the war and conquer and then create an empire, where they actually, through the years, the majority of them had reincarnated, right? And then we try to understand, oh, now I understand why these nations now are more towards creating empires and everything, right? The Greeks, a lot of the Greeks kind of reincarnated, but a huge group then went to the region of France. And if you look at France in the last 200 years, a lot of philosophers, a lot of psychologists, more of that intellectual area, right? And so forth. So also, for example, the Phoenicians were great with the ships and exploring the oceans. A lot of them, over time, both group of them end up in areas like Spain and Portugal, which then in the 1400s, 1500s, the greatest explorers. Nobody could deal with the oceans and like them, right? So it's not a coincidence that each nation has a different characteristics. Some are more prone to technology, others are more prone to, there's characteristics in there because we kind of a society. Remember how spirits kind of stay where they kind of match each other? So the same thing with society. So literally, I suggest to read the book And the Way of the Light, because it is a great book to really understand, because actually what's trying to help us is to understand the evolution of this planets of humanity, how we're going to get to this, how we get to where we started to now get into this transition planet, and how the laws of action and reaction work as a spirit. Okay, so there is a reason why you have certain, and even if you divide it a little bit, Western cultures and with Western cultures way more spiritualized if you really look that's when you have your Hinduism coming, Taoism, Buddhism, and everything. So you have way more the connection with the spirituality, right? And then we go to the Western cultures, it's way less connected to spirituality, right? Compared to, so you do have the difference in there. Why? Because there's different groups of spirits on each one of those areas, okay? So even spiritually talking, nations, they have a connection. They are group, and that's what Emmanuel was saying here. So the society, so the groups that we have, they are this immense forest with each one of us, which one of the trees is has your mental individuality, right? But together we created the society that we have, right? That's why you have societies where you're more prone to racism and anger and everything. Some of them are more calm, more, So we have the difference, right? From one country to the other. Okay. But he also says that inside of the society, so that society, the groups that we are born, right? He says the laws of action and reaction are perfect. So the same way that nobody is born in the wrong family, nobody's is born in the wrong society. There is a reason why I'm being born inside that culture, or why I'm being born inside of that situation, inside of society, right? There is a reason as well, because inside of society as well, the laws of action and reaction, they don't fail and they are perfect, right? Because they are part of God's laws, and God's laws, they're perfect. There's no change, there's no mistake. Okay? So at the end of each incarnation, it's actually when we're gonna see what was the results of our choices when we were incarnated. So basically, the end of an incarnation, that's when it's gonna tell us okay, inside of the society that you were, and with everything that was given to you for you to better yourself, what did you do with all of this? Because it wasn't given to you to come here and have fun, right? All the things that we have, all the possibilities that we have, it's not here for us to have fun and enjoy and you just like, woo, right? It's here for us to help us to better ourselves, to evolve. So that's going to be asked, what did you do with that? Did you really help that to better yourself? And how we better ourselves to helping the others around us, right? Or not, right? And as we know, depending what we did, it may dictate what's going to happen on the next one as well, right? And that's why on the same passage from this book, from this chapter 18, Emmanuel will say, in this way, the hearts that today oppress others, taking advantage of the social stage in which they have entrenched themselves. So the ones who use, I know I'm the CEO of the company. I can abuse the people who work under me. Or I'm this millionaire person and I have this technology in my hand and I can use that to, take even more out of people and put more in my pocket, right? In the illusory supremacy of gold, so I think that because I have all this material power, it makes me superior to others, says, we'll return tomorrow to the tortured in the grounds of need and needy and misfortune, receiving in direct impact the rays of suffering they once sowed in the soil of others' necessities. So basically, if it's someone who created poverty around me, I oppressed, I created hate, I created, misery around me, well, law of action and reaction. I'm going to be on the next one, I'm going to be born exactly in the middle of that misery that I created, that poverty, that misery, right? Is that being punishment? No, I created. It's just my own creation. Well, so if I create it now, I have to correct it, right? So now I'm going to just suffer the consequence of my own creation. That's what it is in society. I created. So I'm going to now get it back, what I created, right? And that's good for our whole society when we talk. It's just not individually, but society as well. That's why these days we see societies that are really worried about helping others. I created, now I have to fix it. Or people who now, that created the misery, that now is born in the misery that they created, now the ones who in the middle of this misery say, hey, no, we need to fight here. We need to, we need to find better conditions. It's the one that's gonna maybe lead the movements to say, no, hey, listen, let's fight for our rights in here, right? Because now I didn't like that situation. So let's fight for our rights now, right? But we have to fix it. I created, I'll have to fix. We created as a society, we're gonna have to fix it, right? And then there's something that he says that to me, we can clearly see these days, actually, in the society we live right now. He says, societies that once enslaved human labor are today obliged to embrace as children of their own bosom. So those who they once took from the land where the evolutionary stage was set. So entire societies that for thousands of years, because when we talk about slavery, we're talking about 1800s, 1700s, 1500s. There's slavery like Jesus, right? So the Romans had slaves, like all the empires had slaves. So all those societies that for the longest time had to went to other nations and enslaved those people, moved them, because those people were born in the areas because that's where they need to be for them to evolve. That's where they need. But what we did when there, just because we had a little more power in terms of guns, and dominated them, moved them away, and made them to work as a slave for us, right? Well, what are we doing now these days? We're receiving them back. Now we have to receive and embrace them in our nations, who most enslaved historically, North Hemisphere, enslaved the South Hemisphere of this planet, historically talking, right? Well, what is the country that most receive refugees immigrants and everything these days. North Hemisphere receiving people from South Hemisphere. Didn't enslave them before? Well, now we're going to have to receive them. Open the arms of our nations, receive them as our brothers and sisters, give them better conditions. Some of them are coming from conditions of hunger. Some of them come from the conditions of war. And we now have to receive them and embrace them, and and they become part of our citizenship, our citizens. They become part of our culture. They bring a little bit of their culture to us, and we mix a little bit, right? I think for us, especially as here in Toronto, it's impossible for you to walk even a single block that you won't see a cafe or a restaurant from a different culture, right? And that's how we learn all the different flavors, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. So one before, and I'm not saying that slavery ended, because it didn't. We just changed names, and slavery still happens until this day. But this day, because we paid some little peanuts, we said that we ended slavery. We didn't. Okay, so we have a long way to go, but now we see the same nations, the same group of spirits that enslaved in the past, now having to receive them back. Right? So we see how even spiritually, even as a society, even as a big groups of spirits, those shifts happen exactly the same way when we think about just a family or a small group, right? There's no coincidence where we're born, or sometimes we even are born, and I'm born like us here, most of us here are immigrants here. We're born in a certain culture, but then for some reason life pushes us to go live in another culture, because sometimes we need to bring a little bit of what we had in here to the other one, and we keep mixing and bringing the good of each other. Okay. And he keeps saying the same. Says so the aristocratic city dwellers who live in their fancy houses and insensitive to the struggles of the working class. So I'm here in my mansion. I think it was Tiago. Tiago was you 2 weeks ago brought that picture of Brazil, where you have, it's in Morumbi, it's in São Paulo, where you have this super luxurious and fancy building, apartment building, like condos, where people have their own swimming pools on each balcony, and literally wall to wall is the slums. Wall to wall is the slums. That's the favelas, or we call in Brazil the favelas, the slums, like wall to wall. So they just put a big wall because I want to protect myself, and this is not my problem because I didn't create it, right? And then he says, so those people insensitive to the struggles of working class, after having breathed the comfort of luxurious avenues, often reincarnated in trouble and anonymous neighborhoods, drinking from the chalice of poverty, the reflections of the smiling cruelty with which they once looked upon the pain and hardship of children of suffering. This is what I said, it's not my problem. Yeah, I could help. I have tons here. I have way more than what I need, but this is not my problem. I didn't create it. I'm sure that we didn't create. Are we creating it right now? Because if you have to help and you're not doing anything, you're helping to create it right now. So guess who's probably gonna be on the other side of this, the wall on the next one? Most often, the ones who are in this building and who didn't care at all. Right? And I'm not saying that everybody's on this side of the wall doesn't care for the others, but some people do. But all the people say, like, oh, it's not my problem. In fact, it would be nice if someone came and just destroy all this and just push them away, because it's a sore to my eyes to see this bunch of poor people. Okay. And actually, I had a vision that was even more bizarre than this, because at least in the picture that Tiago brought to us, it's a group of, at least I have friends, right? I have all my millionaire friends here, and we have a group of people. I can have people to talk, and we're a community here, right? That doesn't care for this whole community. But I was in Madagascar, and I went there with Fraternity Without Borders to visit one of the poorest areas in the planet. And on my way back, I did a little bit of a tour in the city. And Madagascar, it's so poor. It is so poor that like the whole island, it's poor. So you have areas that are poor, and then you have areas of pure misery, okay? And the capital, usually in any poor country that you go, at least the capital has a little bit of structure and everything, and it's not. The capital, the whole capital looks really a poor area in a city of like São Paulo, okay? And there's this one guy who pretty much owns the island, who's pretty much the only millionaire in the whole island. And he has this house that you cannot even see the house because you only see the walls, okay? And you cannot even see the house because maybe the house is so far back and there's trees. That's the only thing that you see. That's the guy who owns all the factories in the country. He owns the airplane company, and like he owns everything. He decides who's going to win the elections or not, okay? And right at his door is the poverty. Like literally right, is like the picture that Thiago brought us, is the poverty. And I keep thinking, this guy's isolated alone. It's not that you have, oh, here's all the mansions. No, it's his mansion, completely isolated in the middle of this misery. And while in the south of the island, children are dying of hunger, literally talking. I saw this with my eyes. Children, their skin and bone, they spend weeks without eating and don't have clothes to wear or anything. And this guy's right there, alone. Like, what's the point? Oh, I own an island. Oh, what's the point? Guess who probably is gonna be born on the other side of the wall, right? It's a huge chance that's gonna happen, right? At the cost of exploiting all the resources of the island, right? So that was really bizarre because I'm from São Paulo. I have seen things like that's already weird to see, but seeing one person, literally one family isolated, was weird, very weird. Okay, but there has, that once we discarnate, nothing goes with us, and then we're going to have to respond what you did. And then you have to remember that Jesus brought to us, the more it's given to you, the more it's going to be asked. So the more resources you had, the more chances you had to help more people. So the consequences are going to be way higher, right? Because you expected more, you had more, you had way more conditions to help. What did you do with that, right? So that's why Emmanuel ends this passage from the book Thought and Life. He ends up saying, he finishes saying, in every age, human society is a giant filter of the spirit, where souls, through the threads of experience, whether in abundance or poverty, leadership or subordination, reap the fruits of their own sowing, slowing the pace of the common plane or quickening it towards the heights of life in obedience to the dictates of evolution. So basically, we all here coming through many experiences. So it seems that this experience in society, living here in society, it's what's going to filter, it's what's going to help us to grow. But then it's also what we do individually that's going to decide if this society here is going to progress or if it stays where we are, because we are part of it, right? That's why Gandhi used to say, be the change that you want to see in the world. Because what we do, if the forest is a collection of all our thoughts and sentiments, then what kind of thoughts and sentiments I am giving to this forest? What kind of forest I wanted this to be, right? So it's up to us to decide, each one of us to decide, is this as a society, as a group, as a nation, are we going to evolve? We're going to just stay kind of here? No, it's easier. Or are we actually going to quick this process, right? It's all up to us, right? Individually and as a society, okay? Because what we see out there, it is a collection of what we all in here do together, right? So now that we understand that nations, that even as a nations, even as groups in society, we also have a spiritual connection and history. which help us to understand better, to talk about our rights and responsibilities, let's start to talk about a little bit, then living here as a society. And for that, I'm going to talk about chapter 71 from a book called Livro da Esperança, that unfortunately I don't think it's translated to English, which would be called Book of Hope. And the chapter 71 is called In the Face of Social Life. And it's interesting because Emmanuel starts right with this phrase here, very straight to the point. He says, the superior spirituality does not sympathize with isolation. So basically, and then he says, if work is the school of souls in the sphere of evolution, social contact is the whetstone that determines the degree of progress. So basically what he's saying is, we all know here that we're here to progress spiritually, be better people. But if I isolated myself, it's like, I'm done with society. People are mean, and that's it. Now I'm just going to work on my spiritual life, and I want to be zen, and I'm going to isolate. I'm going to buy this little cottage, and I'm going to isolate in there, and I'm just going to meditate every day, because now I'm deciding I'm going to be this calm and patient person, and just connected with God, and that's what I'm going to do, right? No. What Emmanuel is saying here is that first we all need to work to progress, but also is actually on the social context, either inside of our house, or at work, on the street, during a vacation trip that we do, is that we are going to first progress really, but also it's what's going to determine the degree of progress. Because you can say, oh yeah, when I'm recluded there on my own cottage, meditating and doing my yoga, yeah, I'm super patient. But then when I have to live with someone, or then when I have being family, or I'm at work, I'm that patient as well. Because it's very easy to say that I'm patient, that I'm calm when I'm being challenged. Yeah, I'm very calm. Nobody's challenged me. No, it's cool. If I get home and everything's exactly the way that I left, I'm super calm. I'm okay. But if I come home and my kids put everything like upside down and everything's out of place, then I'm that calm? Maybe not. Or maybe, you know what? I am actually calm. I'm okay. I don't care. It's kids are like that. I don't care. If my husband puts things on, my wife does. I'm okay. But then maybe at home I'm calm. But maybe at work someone does something that I don't like it. So we all have the degree. So not only we test to see if they're virtuous. So no virtue is really recognized until it's tested. I cannot say that I'm calm, that I have compassion. Oh yeah, I feel really sorry for, people that are suffering. But when you're in the situation, you can help people. Can you really show compassion? Can you really show respect for others? I'll never forget when I was working back home in a hospital, and I had a patient who pretty much was quadriplegic due to a heart attack, a heart attack at work, and anyways, she ended up quadriplegic, tracheostomy. So pretty much she was 100% total care. And I remember her mother in the hospital telling me something that I'll never forget. She said, nobody is racist until it happens inside of your own house. And what happened is the daughter married a black guy. The family, especially the father, was absolutely against it. Absolutely didn't even went to the wedding, to the point to do not go to the wedding. Only starts talking with the daughter again when the granddaughter was born. Okay. And she said, but if you asked us before the marriage, if we had anything against black people, it's like, no, we're not racist. We have nothing against black people until our daughter started to date one. So that's what she said. Nobody, and this, I never remember, I'll never forget this phrase. They said, nobody is racist until it happens inside of your home. Oh, I have no problem with gay people. Yeah, but if your daughter or your son come say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I'm gay. Are you really okay? So see how we need to be tested, and it's the life in society that gives them. And just read actually that story. Actually, this husband that they were so against just because he was black, which makes no difference as him as a person, was super dedicated to his wife and the daughter. A wife was total care, and she said maybe if she hasn't gotten married with him and gone with someone else just because we didn't want, maybe had left her. It's like, oh no, sorry, this is too much work. I'm out of here. And said, and the love and dedication that he has for her, it's absolutely amazing. The daughter, he takes her to the school, he comes home, he takes care, he works, he does everything. See, it's absolutely amazing, right? And then she said, yeah, but you never think you are until you test it. Okay, so that's why we need to live in society. That's why we need to be each other. And even if but I live alone, that's okay. But don't you go to work? Don't we have to go outside? Don't we go to grocery shopping? How do you treat the person who's helping in the grocery shopping, right? So we have to live in society because that's what we're created for, to help each other. Okay. And what Emmanuel also says, on top of that, and being tested to see what kind of virtues we really have, what do I really need to work? Well, I realize I'm super impatient, so I need to work on this. So we can know. How can I know? So in the spiritual book they say, how can we evolve? And the first thing that they say, well, follow what Plato said, know thyself. Well, how can I do that? How can I know myself if I don't even get tested? Oh, I thought I was super patient. Until someone else came to my life. Oh, I thought it was until this happened. And they realized, oh, I'm not that patient. Oh, I was super, no, I worked really well and at work until the one person I got hired. Oh, now that's it. Now I'm angry every day at work. But you're this patient, calm person. So people changed you? No, they just tested you. And just let it flourish, something that was there, wasn't being challenged. So yeah, everything was okay. Now it's being challenged, right? And he says that on top of their talents and skills, they're not put to work the others. They're not used to for the good of others. It's like treasures that we put in a museum. So I go to school and I get my medical diploma and I go my residency. I become this fantastic, skilled surgeon. And then I say, yeah, but I'm not going to do surgeries. But I'm amazing. I have skills like nobody else. Well, so clearly useless skills, because unless you're there doing a surgery and help save people's lives and give them better, life quality, then your skills are useless. They're amazing, but they're useless. So just put them in the museum and leave it in there for people just watch. They're like, wow, look how amazing it is. It's useless. Right? So nobody can reach spiritual evolution keeping themselves away from the others. We can't. Because if it was like this, it was easy that listen, everybody gets a little square of piece of land and everybody just sits there and then just connect with the superior. Like, that's it. That's it. We all evolved. Isn't that easy? It's fantastic. It's much easier to live on our own, right? I don't need to be challenged, but you can't. There's no more evolution. There's no evolution as a society. The society will never get any progress, right? And that's why Emmanuel says the law of the universe working towards the sanctification of creatures. So, right, the law of universal law is that we all have to evolve, right? So do not decree that the world become a valley of begging and suffering, but rather expect the planet to rise to the condition of a home of prosperity and security for all who inhabit in its realms of life. So basically what he's saying is that if we all isolate ourselves, okay, and we're all just going to meditate, we're going to be a bunch of beggars. Well, clear. If we all go just like, I'm just going to work on my spiritual, let's isolate. Well, who's going to work? Who's going to plant? Who's going to harvest? Who's doing it? We all just isolated. How can we progress if we don't exchanging knowledge to each other? If you're not exchanging, even historically, we're doing a little bit of difference, but historically what it is, you produce this more than I produce. Okay, so then I'll sell this part. Before we used to trade, right? Okay, I produce a lot of tea, you produce a lot of spice. I'll trade your tea for my spice. That's how we do, right? Because otherwise, would you just be a bunch of beggars? We're all isolated. Yeah. And if it's as a society, we isolated ourselves as well. Okay, it's my nation. I have everything. I can produce enough food for everybody who's inside my nation. I don't need anybody else on this planet. Yeah, you may be able to produce enough food for everybody, but then after that, there's no growth in technology, in knowledge, in any single area that we have in here, medical, technology, computers, nothing, if there was not an exchange of knowledge around the world, right? You go universities, you have people from all around the world doing their master degrees, doctor degrees, right? Especially North America, and especially actually in the North Hemisphere. We have a lot of people from other countries coming to the universities to do their masters and doctors and bring their knowledge that they have and acquire the knowledge they have. So exchanging, what else we're going to be doing, right? So that's what he's saying here. If we don't live as a society, we're pretty much going to be a bunch of beggars, and we'll be all living in caves, pretty much. And I don't know if we're going to have enough caves to all of us. But because even for that, to create new caves, when you had to someone who decided to study and go and say, hey, I understand, I know how to create a cave. Like, oh yeah, how? So now start to change, exchanging right there. Okay. So in that sense, we are all called to work and help to progress society. So it's not just for progressing ourselves, but to progress society. It's the work that we do, and depending how we do, that we help society to grow. Okay, so not improving ourselves morally and intellectually, but the others around us, because that's how it should be, right? So what's interesting here when Emmanuel says he's not saying on the same passage, he's not saying, hey, you need to literally give everything that you have or anything. He's not saying that. He's just saying that we need to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of the others. So that's why on this passage it says, it's okay for you to study. It's okay for you to invest in your studies. You go, you get your diploma, and so you can get a better job, and you can do whatever, working on the profession that you love, as far as you don't leave the others in the ignorance. In fact, it says it's cruelty to leave the others in ignorance, right? But until these days, keeping people without knowing how to read and write, keeping them in ignorance, it's a way of domination. Brazil is a country where 30% of the population, it's huge, 30% of the population is huge. 30% of the population in Brazil is illiterate. That's a huge number, okay? That's cruelty. So it's okay that we go, that we study, we do it, but let's make sure that other people also have access to ignorance. And I'm gonna do something even easier for us to do on a daily basis. It's when I have a knowledge and I actually hide it from others at work, because I work for it. If they want it, they can work for them. I'm not going to give that information. Can you imagine if the scientists around the world, and Thiago can tell me this better, would we have the scientific knowledge that we have today if we didn't exchange knowledge between nations? Wouldn't have it, right? Do you think we would have the treatments for cancer that we have today at the level that we have today?
We need each other to collaborate at different universities.
Exactly, right? Even because sometimes your lab has the equipment to test what my lab doesn't have it, and vice versa. So we need to collaborate, okay? Because otherwise, so it's okay for us to, invest in our study, but let's make sure that the others not in the ignorance, okay? He says it's okay for us to have our residence, our houses, and and have them all the comfort that we want inside of them. As far as we look for the others around us, they don't even have a shelter to live, and do something to help them. Okay. He says it's okay to have abundance in our tables. Okay, it's not saying, okay, all you guys have to eat. We need to eat crumbles and give. No, it says it's okay to have abundance in our tables, but not wait for hunger to knock at our door to help. There's a lot of people out there suffering, not having anything to eat, any minimum to survive, okay? It's not they're not able to eat that ice cream that they love to. No, they don't have the minimum to survive. So let's open our eyes and see what we can do. Okay. Since it's okay for us to dress up, okay? We have our needs, and sometimes I may have a position where in society or at work that it requires me to dress a little more high end, and it's okay, he says. What's not okay is to have this bunch of clothes that we accumulate in our wardrobes. Just because we like to accumulate, we never use it, where there's people out there shivering in cold, or just nude because they do not have clothes to wear. And I saw this. People have not even clothes to wear. Okay? So that's not okay. It's not okay when we have way more than what we need. And instead of using that to help others, I said, oh, let me keep it here for me. Okay? And that's why he ends this passage saying, do the good so the good will come back to us. But for that to happen, we need to extend to others all the good that we have. So basically, if I have a lot, and like I'm going to talk about, Madagascar, that situation, what this guy's planted is misery around him. Guess what's going to come back to the spirit? And all the spirits, they help with that, right? Same thing with us here. But instead of we plant around us misery and poverty, and instead we help them to be elevated, well, less chance that we're going to be born on that situation, because that situation won't exist anymore of poverty and misery, right? Because the day that we end poverty and misery and the wars here, nobody will have to be born again in those situations, in the middle of war, in the middle of a misery, because this doesn't exist here anymore. Right? So we want to receive the good, we need to give the good, right? We have to extend all the good that we receive it to the ones around us. Right? And that's why Emmanuel in this chapter ends by saying, happiness alone will certainly be consecrated selfishness. So if I'm only happy, I'm the only one happy, and I don't care what's around, that's consecrated selfishness. Okay. In the book Jesus in the Home by Chico Xavier and Spirit of Neo Lucio, there is a chapter that talks exactly about that. It's chapter 21 called The Industrious Man, and brings a perfect example of that. So it's a man who was very righteous, very faithful, had faith in God, and he realized, got all this advice and said, you need to be prudent. So he realized, you know what, I need to save all of this money because my family, I need to make sure that my family is protected and have enough. So he made this heartfelt pray to God to help him, and he goes to work. And for 20 years, this man works, saving every single coin on every single kind of a business, and he saves it, right? And after 20 years, he had saved a few millions. So enough to say, now, I'm good. And all this money is safe in his coffin. But then after 20 years, he stops and he starts to look around and starts to analyze his life that he didn't even have time to analyze. And he realized that a lot of things changed without him noticing. He was so focused in making money and saving and in acquiring more material things that he didn't realize all the changes that happens around him. Started with his home. Used to be a humble but very happy home. It became this place where the wife was spending time to, find 1,000 ways of just, killing her time, which in these days she probably would be shopping 2-3 times a day and worry about her nails and her hair and this and social media. I don't know what they did at this time to kill their time, but that's what she was doing. The kids were just whispering to thinking, how much money I'm going to make when dad dies, right? That's what they want. So spoiled, didn't know how to work. That's what it was. His good friends, the loyal friends, just went away because they had no connection with him anymore. And even the authorities tried to, find a way to profit over his business. All the time having people come in and offering him criminal ways of making more money, which he didn't like that. Right? So he realized that after weeks analyzing, he realized that the only thing that acquiring this money and saving and acquiring and saving way more than what they needed actually just brought him disillusionment and regrets. And when he couldn't handle anymore, one day he really crying, prays to God, and he goes to sleep. And he's visited by an angel. And the angel tells him, Every fortune that flows like the crystal of clear waters of a spring is a living blessing. So the water that comes from the spring and goes along and bringing life all along the path that it goes, that's a living blessing. But all wealth that lies in useless repose is a poisonous well of stagnant water. Right? Says, and then he asks, why you demanded a river when you just needed a cup of water? Why you demanded all this riches when you just needed so much less? Right? And he tells him, go back and convert your coin chest into a miraculous coffer of salvation. Extend the joys of work, build schools to sow spiritual light, and distribute happiness to the multitudes. On earth, money is only worth the good it can do. So very clear that whatever we have, it's only good depending how good we can do this to ourselves, but to the others around us, right? And then what happens is that this man woke up, completely changed, starts using his money now in a completely different way. The wife didn't like much. It's like, what's happening here? Kids start to hate him, but he found his happiness inside of his heart again, because he finally understood what was really important in life. Okay? But all these concepts that Emmanuel brought to us, or Neo Lucy brought to us through this passage, was new. Like, we never heard this about. Actually, not. It was already in the Spirit's book over 150 years ago. The Spirits had brought to us this through Kardec. So the Spirit's book, part 3, chapter 7, is called The Law of Society. And it starts right there with Kardec asking the Spirits, is and societal life natural? So living in society is natural? And see, certainly. And I like what the complex says. God has made humans for living in society. Otherwise, it would have been needless for God to have endowed them with speech and all the other faculties necessary for life and relationships too. So we didn't need to live in society. We don't even need to talk. Why we need to talk? There's nobody to talk. No need to. But see, if everything is created in a way that we live in society, even instinctively, we like to be together and we like to have someone around us, right? And then he asks, absolutely isolation contrary to the law of nature. And exactly like Emmanuel told to us, he says, yes, because people instinctively seek societal living, and because all of them must cooperate in humankind's progress by mutually helping one another, right? We're not going to progress in humanity unless you help each other, because everybody has different skills, and we need to be ready to exchange the skills that we have. Okay? But what I like is this one. In seeking societal living, do people only obey a personal sentiment, or is there a wider providential purpose involved? So it's just that instinct that we like to be, because, there's a bigger project in here. And then there's a comment on Kardec. They answer and they say, yes, there is something more than here. Like we need to help each other. But I like the comment that Kardec does on this question. It says, no single individual possesses the completely range of faculties. It is through societal union that individuals complete one another in order to ensure their own welfare and progress. It is because they need one another that they have been created to live in society and not in isolation. And that's true, right? We all need different professions and everything. I remember seeing one time on the internet, this father and son once they were having coffee, and they just looked like, how many people, like all of a sudden it just came to my mind, like how many people actually had to be involved for us to be holding this cup of coffee in our hands? And they decided to do a research from like the person who prepared the land where the coffee was going to be planted to like all the process from the cup being made, and I can't remember how many, it was like hundreds of people involved just for a cup of coffee to arrive to their hand. So we cannot live in isolation. We all need each other because we all have different aptitudes. And that, what I like about this answer is because you can take this and actually bring it to the big picture as a society. It's not a coincidence that this planet was created in a way that we don't have all this, because we don't have all the same weather everywhere, right? If in the North Hemisphere, what you can produce It's one thing. South hemispheres can produce difference. Some areas have more oil, some areas have more zinc, some parts can produce more iron, some can produce more. So see, and we have to exchange, because not a single planet, single nation here says, "Oh yeah, I have everything. That's it. I'm not going." There is a country right now that's trying to do that, but that's a different lecture that we should not even do. But no single nation can say, "You know what? I have all the resources, all, and it's enough for my population, because I may have all the resources, but not enough for all the." And don't worry, I can have all the technology, I can have all the food, everything is here. There's no such a thing. And do you think it's a coincidence that the planet was created like that, the universe was created like that, when we need to help each other? No, because each area has some. But the problem is that we children still, right? We are kind of societally talking. I think we have we're 2 years old, and if you had kids or if you babysit 2 years old, you leave them to the sandbox, and they don't want to just exchange toys with the other children. They want all of them for them. Like they want to steal all of them because they want all of them. Are they going to play with all of them? No. It's just the power to say they are mine, right? And that's what we do, unfortunately, still doing, have been doing for thousands and thousands of years, and still doing. I don't want it to cooperate. I don't want it to exchange. I want it to dominate, take over your area so that their resources are mine. And so therefore I can control everybody around me and I can exploit. That's what we still do. So as a society, instead of learning that we need each other to progress all together, we're still fighting, and I want all the toys on my side of the sandbox so I can dominate. Slowly we're gonna get in there, but that's what spirits are saying here, right? We need each other, and even when we look at the nations, we do need each other. Society needs each other. Okay. So going back to our initial theme of the lecture was about responsibilities and rights. It's now much easier to respond to this question, because it's a very, very simple answer, because they're absolutely the same. Our responsibilities and our rights are absolutely the same. So our rights, we have the right to be respected. We have the right to a life with dignity. We have the right of living in safety, to have a safe life, to not worry if my house is the next one to be bombed. We all have the right to get out of there, inside of the home, to get out of there and feel safe. We all have the right to be loved. Okay. So our responsibilities is to respect others, is to help others also to have a life with dignity and safety, make sure they're also safe. And we have the responsibility of loving our neighbor as ourselves. So that's why Jesus really said, you want to know what your rights and responsibilities is very easy. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's what he did right there. Right there, he spoke about our rights and our responsibilities. They're exactly the same. There's no difference. Okay. So thank you very much. All right. Any comments or questions? Anything from the internet?
Yeah, we have 2 questions. The first one is, do societies similar to individuals have bad behavior to rescue and improve? And the second question is, do we have spirits dedicated to help the society?
Oh, yes, we do. So the second one, the first one, I need to understand better the question, but the second one, yes. So society itself, they do have. So the same way that we have our personal here that's sitting beside us and help us, as a society, we do have spirits that are saying, okay, I'm going to here to overlook this nation here. I'm going to, so each nation has their own, and we see that clearly in the book, Brasil, Coração do Mundo, Pátria do Evangelho, Brazil, heart of the world, nation of the gospel, kind of. I don't think it's translated to English if I'm not wrong. But that's what it says. It says how the spirit of Ismael is the spirit that actually overlooks Brazil. So yes, nations do have their own mentors. So we cannot even complain and say that we don't have people to guide us, because we do. And so what's exactly the first question?
So the first question is, do societies similar to individuals have bad behavior to rescue and improve?
If
Like if societies have like bad habits, they need to rescue and improve.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So basically, spirits who created their own environment, who now has been born on this environment that they created, and they need to help that environment to improve. And also what happens sometimes, us as a spirit, we may reincarnate in a society for a long time, and then eventually we don't need the lessons that the society can provide us, and then we can maybe start reincarnating them. So maybe now, maybe I'm going to be reincarnated in a society that's more dealt with spirituality, and I need to do that more often, right? And then maybe when I don't need that anymore, because I understand, then I'm going to go to a society where I need to bring that spirituality to that society. So that's so it's not that everybody who's on that society came with the same background, but in general, that's what it is. But definitely those people have to help to fix what we did, laws of action and reaction. Right. In other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you first of all, because it was a beautiful lecture. It's a lot of points. I'm traveling my own journey in my life as you were talking. And there's many points that I want to review, but what touched me a lot about the isolation, right? That you said, I think it was Emmanuel that said, if you're a evolved spirit, you are more, it was a phrase that you said, that Emmanuel had said, that you don't like isolation, something like that.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, maybe I am a little more a spirit.
Yes, the superior spirituality does not sympathize with isolation. Yeah.
Because isolation is something that really hurts me, especially since the COVID we have experienced to be not in the offices anymore and working by ourselves. And this is something that really hurts me. I go to the office maybe 2-3 times a week, because even there is nobody, maybe 2-3 people, but I'm already with somebody else.
Yes, yeah.
And that is something that I say to myself, that's the way that life is explored.
Yeah.
But I need contact. I need to talk with you and be around.
Yeah.
And this was one point. And the other point too was about the nations, right? So, as I'm an immigrant here, Brazil, it is a country that a lot of people are, more religious. And even though there, when we go going out or talking with a friend on the phone, I have a lot of friends say, you can stay with God, God will follow you, or they have all this. And I missed this when I came here, because we don't use this kind of saying good job.
No, it's not as often.
Right.
Yeah.
And besides, I married someone that is not very religious. And I was put in this position that now I'm here, and somehow I'm helping someone to be a little bit more spiritual, right? Thank you, because sometimes it's hard, but I'm there.
Yeah.
Why I'm in this position in my life? So it's what I'm saying. The lecture touched me in many different things that I have to review and reflect more.
Yeah, but see, you brought something very interesting. So pandemic brought exactly this to us. So how much isolation is not natural to us. And we're talking about, and just one thing to make clear, when he talks isolation, talks about the isolation that it's I choose. I want to choose, and I don't want to be around society. It's very important sometimes for us to have a moment of isolation, for us to think for us to know that's different, right? But it's just like I'm going to isolate from our society, or I'm not isolated physically, but I really don't care what's around me, right? But pandemic, it's a clear way that showed how many people end up having mental issues because they have to be alone, especially if they are alone, right? That they have to have many mental issues, depression, everything, because we're not wired to be alone. We are wired to be together, right? How many people had happy marriages that when pandemic came and they had to be together in the home, like really now spend time, realize that the marriage wasn't really as happy they thought was gonna be, right? Also, how many people actually reconnected because they living together like all the time, because working from home, they actually reconnected, right? Because then it put it to challenge, right? So if you're not put it to challenge, you really don't see what's going on, right? And the point of you seeing coming to here, it's true. Even for me, working in a hospital in Brazil and working in here, it is completely different. In Brazil, even in the hospital, I used to see more like, God bless, oh yeah. Even the patients, yeah, I'm gonna pray and everything. Here, I don't get there more often. So it's nice when I have a patient when we can talk about morning that way. I'm like, oh yeah, no, let's pray, but it's less common. But that's not a coincidence that, especially in Spiritism, if you really go to any countries outside of Brazil, most of them, the Spiritist groups that start is actually the Brazilians who moved. Like you go to Germany, how it starts in there, Brazilians who moved to Germany. How it starts in England, Brazilians. Even if you go to France, where it started, it's actually Spiritist groups that are there today are the Brazilians who moved to France and started the Spiritist group. Because I have a family who's French, and they have never heard about Spiritism. Like it's clueless, right? When I said, I'm going to Center de Père Lachaise to see Kardec, like who? Like, clueless, right? So even in France, it's the Brazilians, right? North America, everywhere, it's us bringing this and bringing those seeds around, right? So that's what's important for us to have that exchange. Right? And it's beautiful. But I have learned so much here with the culture to be a better person here as well. Because then there's other characteristics here that now I look to Brazil like, oh man, we have a long way to go, right? Long way to go. And I like a phrase that there is an Anglican church right just a block from my house, and they have those electronic boards that change the message. And I love a message that they have in there that says, a charitable atheist pleases more God than a selfish Christian. So, yeah. And I have met a lot of people here who may not as into religion, but they're very cheerful. They really worry about society. They behave in society as respecting others people's space. And I learned a lot with the culture here as well. So that exchange is, I think we're very privileged because we have exactly this privilege to bring what we have in there to what's good in here and enrich ourselves. Okay. Any other comments or no? All right. So thank you everyone that was with us over the internet today, and hoping to see you here back next week. Okay.